Abingdon Press has allowed me as an author to explore subjects that many publishers wouldn't have allowed me to explore. Like in Darkness Before Dawn, my first fictional novel for Abingdon, they allowed me to look at drunk driving. They allowed me to look at a justice system that often favors those with money and power and influence. They allowed me to look at the value of life and abortion and suicide. They allowed me to delve into subjects that normally many secular publishers even shy away from. In the follow-up book, The Cutting Edge, they allowed me to look into assault, stalking. They allowed me to examine a woman whose entire life had been destroyed through an attack and watch as she rebuilt her life with a new set of values, watched her struggle with those, watched her define what love was all about. And then this book also allowed me to look at child abuse and the effects it had on children who seemed to think they were the cause of that abuse. It was a mystery, it was a whodunit, just like Darkness Before Dawn, but it was more too. It was a book that examined values in a different light from what most Christian publishers do. In The Christmas Star, my next novel from Abingdon, my editor, Ramona Richards, allowed me to look at the post-World War II era. And as families were reunited and people came home, one boy didn't come home. And that boy who came from overseas won the Congressional Medal of Honor and left behind a wife and a son. And we look at how that son coped with his father's death and the impact it had on him. And the fact not having that moral voice in his life caused him to be led astray. It's an interesting take on the horrors and ramifications of war that we often look at as being something that's glorious and wonderful, rather than seeing the real price there is. Then Abingdon really gave me an opportunity to do something that most do not do. In The Color of Justice, I had an opportunity to write about the racial dilemmas the nation faced in 1964 during the Civil Rights Movement, and base it on a trial, a whodunit, a mystery, a suspense novel. And they allowed me to be very real, to paint the picture as it was, to not pull punches, and to write a novel that in some places is hard to read because it does remind us of the way things were. This novel finishes in modern day times and also shows us that we still have a long way to go. Justice in many cases does know a color, and that color has to be eliminated for all of us to function as brothers and sisters. And The Color of Justice allowed me to examine that in a mystery that I think is one of the best mysteries I have ever had an opportunity to create. And now comes Hollywood Lost, set in 1936 in the midst of the Depression, and a young girl from Oklahoma ends up working at one of the major Hollywood studios. This, in a sense, is a movie about a mass murder, someone who strangles, and the chief suspects are in the studio itself. But it examines something else too. It examines how situations can change morality. It examines how there's a thin line between reality and illusion. And Hollywood and the rest of life capitalizes on that line. And it examines a young woman as she's caught in the middle of it. The murder investigation, working at the studio, being wooed by the biggest stars in Hollywood, and also being wooed by the temptation that lies there. Hollywood Lost is an Art Deco novel in a sense, but it's a whodunit, it's a mystery, it's a suspense novel with a touch of romance. It's a very different kind of novel than most publishers do. But thankfully, I write for Abingdon, and Abingdon has given me the chance to push the envelope, to spread out, to challenge not only my abilities as a writer, but also to challenge the way each of us thinks. And I'm deeply appreciative that Ramona Richards and Abingdon have given me this opportunity and continue to give me this opportunity in novel after novel.